When I got into the family, I started studying. So I got saved and started studying. And I moved back home. People will be commenting. Now they go to Reform Baptist church. You know, I still just want some of the church, but mostly on like, you know, where
yeah, that's that for us. That was kind of
they're much more
even though there were peripheral things that we were just fellowshipping and unity over and everything.
But I grew up in
so we all able to handle it, and then once it started
and
going
then
out,
that's what really led me. I think we talked earlier, like we already studied some good topics, right? So I have to, you know, my short year being study Catholicism. Baptism and that topic, cessationism, stuff like that, apologetics, presuppositionalism, after that, covenant theology, dispensationalism, stuff like that. So, you know, I've gone through a lot of that too, as far as studying and just trying to gobble up books and, you know, sermons and debate different things and trying to get a good understanding. So as I tackle these topics, that one kind of caught them, if you will. So we slowly moved away from so I'm like very part of
it's easy for all that stuff.
like
That like sand.
the apostles, disciples of the apostles, and really lay a foundation. Now
Are you taking over video?
But I'm cool, like other brothers disagree with that. I don't make it.
Maybe I can give you some more responsibilities.
Because still people in my family still.
You can handle that button pressing. I know what I can put you
Pretty
on.
devout Christian.
We have soda over here.
And she speaks Dutch. So, how I work through that
I
is
should have mixed
challenging.
it with more.
But
It's high on the lemon.
I don't have any doubts.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if she test it with her mouth.
No, I should put more water in it.
All right,
Praise the Lord, so,
here we
you know, all
go.
those things, you know, but sure we'll chat.
Fun. You don't hear me?
I don't hear me.
You know what?
Keep shutting you off.
I don't even think you need them on,
That's fine.
because you can hear yourself here, which is something new. You can hear yourself from the speaker. You hear, you,
No, I'm on. I think I'm on.
oh.
I'm off again.
Quit
Thanks,
complaining. Quit complaining. All right.
The only one that gets turned on.
Now how we, that, new problems. All right, that's because that is too loud. Turn that down. All right, hey. Yeah, you need to turn that down. Yeah, both. Or the whole speaker, move the speaker way over there. Just, yeah.
Yeah, no, a little bit.
All right.
There you go.
This is an encounter of the third kind, I think.
All right, so, Mr. Foster.
Are we supposed to be able to hear him?
Yeah, we don't.
Or do you hear?
He hears it. Pretty sure.
Go ahead and talk, Adam.
Talking some more. And a little more.
How about you,
How's
Michael
that?
Foster? You, Michael Foster, talk.
Yeah, we don't.
What's your name?
No.
Boy, this is awesome. We can hear you now, Michael.
That's because I turned him down. All right, go ahead and talk.
All right, how about now?
Okay.
You guys hear me? Yeah?
Yeah. Are we good? 1, 2, 3, everybody? Good? All right. I think we're live somewhere, aren't we? Are we live somewhere already, George?
We are live on YouTube. For my audience, peace, everybody.
All right, let me go ahead and press. This is, that, so far, everything you've seen is the stuff that gets edited out. That's everything that you've seen so far, okay? And when I piece this together, I will have, I'll edit in my intro, and then I will press record, and we will be on our way. Michael Foster, say something real quick. Good. He sounds better than we do. Doesn't he sound better? He sounds clearer than we do. It's because of the little bit of feedback. All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Bible Thumping Wingnut Show. My name is Tim Hurd. I'm the Bible Thumping Wingnut guy. And we are at the Builders Summit, the very first Builders Summit. Joining me are three individuals. First of all, let me introduce my co-host for the day. That is Mr. Adam Staub of the Shine as Lights podcast. He and I are gonna kind of guide this discussion. How are you today, Adam?
I'm doing wonderful.
We are here at Pocono Mountain Bible Camp and enjoying cold weather and fighting technology. But we are excited because we have George Bruno here. Introduce secondly George Bruno of the George Bruno Experience. What do you call that? George's YouTube channel is the home of clarity.
Sanity, clarity, and reason.
That's right. And I have been watching George's videos for about just over a year now. And I'm excited to have George Bruno join us on this episode of the Bible Thumping Wingnut podcast, as well as at the summit. George is from Philly, and let me explain the topic as I introduce him, because George's YouTube channel is he has almost 140,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. Bible Thumping Wingnut has like 7,000. So his audience is huge and massive and worldwide. He has impacted hundreds of thousands of lives through his YouTube channel. And one of the things he's helped me with is self-discipline. And all of us, we have areas in our lives that we can improve on. Some of them spiritual, some of them physical, some of them in different areas. And George helped me in my life in the area of physical fitness. He was the catalyst a year ago that drove me to say, all right, I really need to lose some weight. I knew I needed to lose some weight, and he helped me lose 45 pounds in I don't know what it was, just like 3 months. So hats off to you. He was that one catalyst that put me over, those of us who fight weight. But George, welcome to the Bible Thumping Wingnut Show, and tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel and what you do.
I like to say, be open to all experiences, be open to all people. You never know when a switch inside is going to get flipped that will make you unrecognizable by this time next year, either physically, mentally, spiritually. You might hear like one little thing. And after being on this earth for 6 decades, what I share on my channel is wisdom that I've learned, mistakes that I've made. I trigger people all the time, sometimes on purpose. I have a lot of fun. It's what I do for a living. My trade is hair cutting. It's my family trade. My mother and father cut hair, I cut hair. And I was a therapist for 22 years, and I left that field because I was burnt out. And I have some theological training as well. So I integrate that into my teaching on my YouTube channel. I do a daily show called The Daybreak Show. And I start recording at 5 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday. And I reach people all over the world. And most recently, I have a growing female audience. And a lot of that female audience is single moms who have boys who don't have men in their lives. And the mom will be watching my show with her 14-year-old son. And I got the nickname, the father I get 100 emails a day from young men saying, you're like the father that I never had. And the grayer that I got, I'm like the grandfather that they never had. And it's basically what I just call fatherly wisdom, not super intellectual. 60% of my audience is in the United States, the rest is global, Africa, Europe, to the point where when I travel, it doesn't matter where I go in the world, people say, wow, I watch your channel. I'll be sitting somewhere in a restaurant in Warsaw, Poland, and someone will say, I watch you every day. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, what's your name? So with some, and it was kind of like accidental success. I just had a YouTube channel, like people just have YouTube channels just for the heck of it and share family things and pictures and kids' baseball, you know, trophies and stuff like that. And it grew and it grew and it grew. So I say, you never know when something is just gonna explode, and with that comes a great responsibility. I used to curse a lot, and people would call me on it. So it was kind of like reverse teaching, because I would have people that say, I love what you say, but every time you curse, it just, and I'd be like, you know what? And that kind of like drew me back to a more pure life. And my early videos would be very offensive to a lot of Christian people, but
your YouTube, excuse me, trying to control the feedback and turning microphones on and off.
yeah,
But your ministry, your YouTube channel has gone through transitions, right?
yes.
You focused on actually pipe smoking, cigar smoking for a while,
Yeah.
and beard grooming,
Yeah, men's grooming.
and you had a beard all the way down
To my belt buckle.
to your belt buckle.
Yeah, I looked like Gandalf.
It was quite epic.
And I shared all these social implications. Beards make you look a little bit older. When your beard is white, it makes you look really older. So like when I had the big beard, people would open doors for me, you know, clearly capable of opening doors. Here you go, sir. Like I'm a 90-year-old guy. It's kind of funny. Divorced. I'd be sitting in my favorite sports bar watching my favorite band play with a big beard, and one of the things I love talking about is there I am with a flannel shirt on and a camo hat, and usually by the end of the night I'm surrounded by guys in flannel shirts and camo hats, and we're all drinking Yingling, and then I decided to take the beard off, and 1 week later, clean shaven, sitting at the bar, and bartender comes over. For those of you that aren't familiar with bar culture, I'm not really proud of this, but you know, when someone buys you a drink, they come over and they put the shot glass upside down in front of you, right? And then they point to the person that bought you the drink. In about 2 hours, I got about 7 or 8 upside down shot glasses from women. Bartender would say, that blonde over there, she just bought you a drink. And I'm like a one and done guy. I like one beer and a glass of water and I'm done. And I can milk, drink for hours.
But that was a lot different than when you had the beard.
Yeah.
So the perception of you.
Well, it was
with
interesting.
beard and without
So
a
what
beard,
happens is, because I don't drink, I said to the bartender, I said, can I trade these in for like a grilled chicken Caesar salad or something? I mean, I can't possibly, I don't and I can't do that. And what was interesting was the perception of the old Gandalf looking guy surrounded by other Gandalf looking guys, and then taking the beard off, and then like just, it was like someone flipped a switch. So I've done many social experiments like that over the years on my YouTube channel. Just things that you would never think of, things that I've never seen before, and some things fall flat on their face, other things take off. I've done pipe smoking and cigar videos. And
So on your daily show, what you do is I open up a can of Diet Coke underneath the table, so I don't interrupt the conversation.
Yeah.
Didn't go so well. So what you do on your daily show is you tweet every day, and then on your daily show, you get up real early and you drink coffee, stir coffee with chopsticks, You go over your Twitter feed, and it's a very mixed bag of topics. And you read one quote from maybe a 70s rock song, and the next quote could be from Ephesians chapter 4. And then some advice to young men about how to engage with women, and then some advice for young mothers. And one right after another, something for everybody there on BRUNO's YouTube channel. Now, to introduce our second guest, Michael. Do you know who Michael Foster is?
Just through you.
Just through me.
Just through you.
So you don't, hopefully you have some good, here he is, he's on our screen. Michael Foster wasn't able to make it to the Builders Summit.
Sorry.
That's okay, you have circumstance obviously out of your control. But Michael Foster has a ministry called It's Good to Be a Man. And the first time I came across Michael Foster, Michael was doing a video about some theonomist, and that I really appreciated his articulation of the argument that I agreed with. And then I found that you have this ministry called It's Good to Be a Man. So this is why I wanted you to be part of this discussion on this podcast, is because Michael Foster has a ministry to men, and so does George BRUNO. He has a YouTube channel, Speaking to Men, and one of the topics that they both hit on all the time, pretty frequently, if not all the time, is the need for men to act like men. And big part of the topic that they cover is how the culture and even the church is attacking biblical manhood, and how let me pass it over to you, Michael. Tell us about your ministry. It's Good to Be a Man.
Sure, yeah. So, you guys can hear me? This is good?
Yes. Yep.
George said that his YouTube was kind of like accidental success. I did not set out to start a ministry to men. I've been in ministry most of my adult life as a youth pastor, a church planter, and then most recently as an associate pastor in the PCA. But what I kept seeing is a lot of guys that just weren't doing well. Some of them were what we would think as kind of like basement dwelling losers, but not all of them fell into that category. Some of these guys were talented men, good looking men, and they just were not able to get married, and they were struggling with women in particular. And these are guys 20s all the way up into their mid 30s. So I wanted to understand how I could help them. And I'm kind of the last of a generation. I'm 39. So I grew up both analog and digital, in between worlds. So I remember the world before the internet. And but people just a little bit younger than me don't. I mean, they've really had internet their whole life. The internet drastically changed things, whether we're talking about pornography or video games or the dating websites or just the ability to interact with humans. So I started to realize a lot of the advice I was giving these guys was for a different world. And I think this is a problem that you can get into when there's these great technological jumps, and we're going through one right now. So I started to read, and I had this idea for this podcast like 3 years ago or more. I can't remember when it was. And but I just found that the answers I was giving these guys were wrong, so I dug deeper and deeper. I got into the red pill movement. I got into the men's rights activist movement. I mean, I used to work part-time in the ministry, so I think I listened to
I think how many of you in the room here, we have a live audience today at the Builder Summit. How many of you do not know what the red pill movement is? Raise your hand. Okay, more than half. So, Michael,
so what we have
pill?
now is that we have feminism has come in waves. The doctrine of feminism and androgyny is very, very old, right? It's ancient. It's an evil doctrine. But in terms of modern feminism, it really took root in America big time, 50s on up. Alfred Kinsey, coming up to where we're at now. And so that worked its way into the law, family courts, and all that. And so in the late 70s and 80s, you have a Christian pushback. That's where you get the Danvers Statement and eventually what we call complementarianism. So that was kind of like a halfway house, really, for egalitarianism, in my opinion. Well, there's kind of a pagan pushback that's coming from different places. Guys like Jordan Peterson, what's his name? Donovan, the Way of Men guy? Help me out.
Oh, Jack Donovan.
Jack Donovan. Jack Donovan's another one. Jack Donovan's a homosexual. But he's writing, The Way of Men is actually a pretty good book. I remember when I read it, I was like, why is there nothing in here about fatherhood and children? And then I was like, oh, he's a homosexual. But Michael Cernovich was kind of an early part of that. So sometimes these guys get looped into a group called Red Pill. So it pulls from the Matrix, right? Blue pill keeps you in the machine, the red pill wakes you up. So it's branched off in all sorts of different directions, but what I would say more than anything really is just a non-Christian response to feminism in culture. And so that's coming at us from all these ways. And the problem is the church right now is mostly complicit with egalitarianism. It's either expressively so or functionally egalitarian in its doctrine. And so young men are sick of being shamed for being men. And they want to know, they don't want to be effeminate. They want to know, how can I be manly? How can I be godly? And they're looking for practical advice. When the church doesn't give it, these guys are going on to YouTube. YouTube's where they learn how to tie a tie, how to do a half Windsor knot, how to change the oil. Maybe YouTube will teach me how to be a man. And so you got guys like Jordan Peterson blowing up. And so that's where I wanted to understand who these young men were listening to and why they appealed to them. And so that I think maybe if there's anything different about It's Good to Be a Man, is that we're pretty conversant in everything going on in the various men's movement. Me and my co-producer, non-tenant, read a lot and listen a lot, and we like when people are listening to. So we're trying to respond to today's problems and understand the language and rhetoric people are using. And so that's kind of what It's Good to Be a Man makes it a little bit different. We focus on extending God's household by helping men to build their own house that glorifies God. We're encouraging men to prepare their field and then build their house, become competent, wise, virtuous, strong men that can take a wife and be fruitful and multiply and raise those kids up to fear God. I think if we're going to bring any change in America, that's going to be a big part of it.
Okay, Adam, I'm going to fill in some definitions for those who might not catch. Adam, quickly, because I know you can do this quickly. What is complementarianism? What is egalitarianism?
Okay, so complementarianism is the basic foundation of, and people would tie it back into the Bible that man and a woman were meant to complement each other, and they are made by God equal in value, but separate in roles, complementary roles. Is that a good definition for you?
Yeah.
All right. I'll be honest with you, egalitarianism, I don't know that I know a sufficient definition of what exactly it is, other than what I know is the branching out of it is these things like feminism. It is the equalizing completely of male and female. No difference. So the equalizing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
And that in the church results in women pastors and
beyond even just the church, in the home, you have usurping of God, ordained roles and purposes for each of his distinct creatures for mankind.
Right. George, about the red pill, blue pill.
Yeah.
You got anything to add on that?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about the red pill, being red pill aware. We have a new lens put on that, and most of those guys are talking about intergender dynamics, seeing women and the world for how it is, not how you want it to be. That's a red pill lens. I like to say that everything I learned about nutrition, everything I learned about exercise, medicine, pharmaceuticals, education, politics, money, everything I learned about those things was wrong. You kind of wake up.
So the red pill's not always bad. There's a good element.
There's
of it.
people that talk about getting red pilled. You see that a lot. Well, I got red pilled about politics. I got red pilled about X, Y, Z, whatever. And like I said, it's basically seeing the world as it is, not how you want it to be, which reduces anxiety, which reduces your expectations for, I can't wait till X becomes president because my life will change.
You do that a lot on your YouTube channel. You get men who are watching who want to be successful, right? They want to be in a good relationship with a woman. They want to have a good income. They want to be successful and respected. But you help them realize that sitting around eating Cheetos, playing video games, and not looking for a job is never going to get you there.
Exactly. I mean, I tell people, pause the video and do 10 push-ups right now. Right now.
Okay, so red pill, not always bad. Michael Foster, tell us more about some of the things that men today, in general, need to be challenged with. What are we facing?
Sure. And the most basic idea I try to get across to men is that God made you to be a man, right? Masculinity is part of God's design. It's good, it's intrinsic, it's ontological. In other words, it's part of your essence. Like when if you were made a man from conception, you'll forever and ever and ever be a man. You'll never stop being a man. You'll be resurrected a man. Just like if you deny that sex is, then you start messing with key doctrines like the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He's resurrected in a real human body, right? Human bodies exist in one of two varieties, male or female. That's how he made them. So first is like, look, guys, your masculine desires are part of God's design, but twisted by the fall. Like take violence. Violence is good. Violent men stop other violent men. This is why women make terrible pastors. They want everyone to get along, right? We don't want to get along with heretics. We have no desire to get along with false teachers. They're brought to the church. They just not just destroy the peace, but actually hurt people's lives. And as protectors, men won't put up with it. And so when we're teaching men to be more like women, it shouldn't shock us that we're having explosions of heresy and all sorts of heterodoxy. And so anytime a woman gets ordained in a denomination, that denomination in less than a generation goes liberal. And it's because they want to get along with everybody. And that makes sense if you're a nurturer and you're trying to keep, nurture people and weave them together in the household, and there's a place for that. But that happens behind enemy lines, not on the trenches. So we need to teach men that it's your violent urges, your aggression, when ordered by the Holy Spirit, is a good thing. We got all these sissy boys that are lashing out and shooting people in schools, and they're telling it's because they got to get more in touch with their feelings. Those kids are in touch with their feelings. The problem is no one's taught them how to aim it, how to control it. And men have to learn how to be stoic at some level. I cry when it's right to cry. And there's other times I'm not going to cry. It's my job to be strong. So I think we need to start teaching men, no, your desire to be stoic, your desire to be aggressive, your sex desire, your libido. Like women don't have the same libido we do. I was telling my wife, I was like, the reason men can't have multiple orgasms within 30 minutes is because we just would die of orgasm. We just die. We just keep going after it. That's how powerful it is, because we have more testosterone than women do. Significant amount. But when that's ordered according to God, then we're fruitful and we multiply. It's wonderful. It needs to be sexual desires and something you should be ashamed of. It just needs to be according to God's plan. And so a lot of the things that we're shaming men for, the shame is good. Shame is like pain. If I step on a nail, I feel the pain. That's my body saying, don't step on a nail. If I feel shame when I sin, that's great. That's God saying, don't do that. That's shameful. But if I feel shame when I'm doing something good, it's like feeling pain when I'm walking in a normal way. That means something's not right. And so what we have right now is men being shamed for being men. No, let's shame them for being sinners. Let's shame them for sin. But let's show how masculinity is part of God's good design, and through the gospel and the work of the Holy Spirit in the life of them, that stuff can be reordered. I mean, that's basic Augustine right there. So those are some thoughts.
Adam, stop. When I listen to Michael Foster, not only did I learn something about my own sexuality as he was talking, but the whole attack on men and masculinity, is it not, or is it an attack on God?
Oh, yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
rejection of God's order.
Yeah, and you see it right from creation. You open the book, right, Genesis 1, you see that God gives Adam, and this can also, by extension, God gives 2 commands. He says, you rule and you reproduce. And then in Genesis 2, where you get a little bit of a zoomed in thing, he tells Adam to work and to watch. And so those are the very foundations of what it means to be a man. There's obviously certain things, like Michael talked about, George talked about, that we're kind of wired towards and built differently, so we have different propensities, but those overarching purposes are something that we are not just called to do and it will fulfill us, but they're literally a part of who we are as men. And so I think that's really important. We need to put ourselves in positions where we're ruling, we're producing, we're working, we're watching. That's what we're made to do. Or guarding. When I say watching, I mean the word there is even guard.
All right, before I give George a couple of minutes here to speak on what we've been talking about, maybe expound on how he implements these principles in his YouTube channel, I want to also say to the guys in the room, you can ask a question. You can go on the Bible Thumping Wingman podcast. If you have a question or something to add, just stand up and go stand behind Adam, and I'll call on you, and Adam will hand you his mic. George, what do you think of what's being said here?
Well, I like what Michael said about Stoicism. And for me, the bottom line on Stoicism is this: don't deny your emotions, but delay them. Delay the emotions. Do men cry? Of course they do, but not during the day at work. Maybe on your way home. I say save it for your pillow, for your mattress. Save it for your counselor. Don't be emotional with the woman in your life. She needs a rock. She doesn't want to be the rock. Every time you cry, and this comes from the yin-yang BS that we've all learned. Well, inside of us, there's, we're a little bit male and a little bit female. I just want to squash that right from the get. There is no yin-yang. You do not have a female side to you. I heard a comedian say, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is I finally discovered I have a female side. The bad news is it's a big fat lesbian. So you do not have a female side. You are a man. God created you to be a man. Like Michael says, it's good to be a man. So for the women in your life, you do not endear yourself to your woman by becoming more like her or more sensitive. What I want you to do is amp up your masculinity. There's a difference between masculinity and macho. I'm not talking about being a macho jerk. You want to be decisive. You want to be a leader. You want to be considerate, compassionate. Lead with decisiveness and compassion. That's important. That's what gets you respect in your household and future households for those that are not married. Delay the emotions. Don't deny them. Be the rock. Be the rock. If you want to get all sensitive, talk to me. Talk to a buddy. Talk to your pastor. Don't do it with your girlfriend. Don't do it with your wife or future wife. They need something, especially now, in this day and age, where the headlines are just tragic. Everything is like a action movie. put on the news. It's crazy. You want to be the most solid thing in your woman's life. No crying together with your wife. Sorry. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because you will go down a few notches. And then you're going to wonder why she is spending time with a stronger man at work or talking about someone else who seems to have what you don't have. You need to be the leader in your family. I tweeted yesterday or today, I said, you need to make more money than your wife. You need to earn more than the woman in your life. Now that's a tough one. A lot of guys, the hate mail that I got from that was unbelievable. You know why that is? Because men earn. It's a masculine trait. When you your woman or allow your woman to earn more than you, you're forcing her to be less feminine and more masculine. And you are becoming more feminine. Yeah, but she has a PhD and I'm only a plumber. I don't care. Where there's a will, there's a way. There's a way. You can do it. You agree?
I agree. Not with everything you said, but I agree with most of the things you said. Hey, Michael Foster, so when I hear George say the things that he said, there's a big part of me that says, yes, I agree 100%. But when he talks about not crying with your wife and not being completely transparent with your wife, maybe you would characterize what I just said differently. But like, there's a big part of scripture that says, become one with your wife. And how do you, am I thinking right, or am I misapplying, or do you agree 100% with George?
I think 95% of the time, what George just said is what you should be. Look, a woman doesn't need your weakness. She has plenty of her own. Here's what I would say. First off, we become one in the mission, right? In the call. Adam was given a particular work and he needed a helper to get that work done. So basically the creation mandate, which is set after the flood and reiterated in one way or another throughout all of scripture and assumed. So I think we become one in that way. But I will tell you that there's a sisterhood and there's a brotherhood. There's things that brothers understand that your wife will never get. And there's things that your wife's gone through that you'll never get in the way that she does it. Because, for example, I find that women tend to be way more brutal than guys when it comes to a guy being weak. But if a guy's weak,
My wife's called me on that sometimes.
yeah, where I'm more understanding because I'm like him, I get it. Where a woman's like, oh, I thought you're supposed to be strong, So what I always tell guys is, look, never complain to your wife to the best of your ability, and if you're gonna process your weakness, do it with a good friend first. That's why our brotherhood, our male relationships, that's one of the destructions of homosexuality, is it eroticizes everything. And now, if you're real close with a guy, people start wondering, right? That's crazy. No, we need each other. People read that stuff in there with David and Jonathan. No, they're friends, right? He says Jonathan, like, it's better. He had his relationship with Jonathan exceeded the love of a woman. It's hard for people in a porn-centric society to understand that. So here's what I would say. What I would say is that, yeah, there's a time you cry. When my daughter died, me and my wife cried together, but not every time. Sometimes I had to be strong, and I had to be the one that could walk us through all that. So there's, without a doubt, a place for some vulnerability, but this conversation would just be laughable. Like almost every other time. I mean, can you imagine? So there's a place where there's a place for crying, but guys, stop being such sissies. Seriously, be a sissy with your brother. We'll understand. We'll either say, yeah, that's rough, or we'll tell you, stop being a sissy. We'll be there for you, right? I have friends that help me out. Say, yeah, you're being a punk. You're being a baby. But women will shake your head and nod and pat you on their back, but I'm telling you, they're just way more brutal than we are with men. They like, oh, that's sweet and all, but no, I don't. So I would say the majority of the time, I'm transparent with my wife, with my struggles where I need to be. The other thing is, what good is my strength if I can't shield her from things? There's burdens I bear I don't want to share with her. This is especially true in the ministry where I have to deal with with rape and sexual abuse and adultery and all sorts of terrible sin, right? When you're on the front lines dealing with counseling. I don't share all that stuff with my wife. That's bothering me. That's my burden to bear, and I don't want her to be part of that. I work through it with other guys, so I think we want to shield each other from things. Does that make sense?
Michael Foster can only see me, so all he can see is me right now. So I want to tell you that George and Adam, they're shaking their head in agreement so much, I think their heads are gonna fall off.
Good. I'm glad they agree because I think I'm right.
Adam,
Yeah, no, I think he's right on, and I think, I was attempting to bring it up, and I can't get it on my phone, but it's 1 Peter 3, talks, about how the husband is to have an understanding of his wife as the weaker vessel. And that's just a reality. Any husband knows, well, you should know, if you don't know, that you are stronger than your wife and you are able to bear burdens that she emotionally, the way she's built, cannot bear. And so, I'm bobbing my head knowing, 12 years deep in marriage, that there are things I would be destroying my wife if I told her about, as a pastor with counseling, similar things. But just even things, like my wife does not need to hear that I had a bad day at work or something like that.